Lazarus. Here I am sitting in a beach hut. If you listen closely, you can hear the crashing waves. I'm on an island in the inland sea. It's actually classified as a sea, but it's Lake Malawi, the 8th biggest lake in the world. And it took us days to get here, as some of you know if you watched the Pulse Report, the recent Pulse Report. But here I am stranded on a desert island in the middle of Africa, the heart of Africa. Beautiful place, I have to say, and happy that I've got Starlink here, which does tend to go out every few minutes whilst the satellite catches up with the planet, or the other way around. And who better than to have the expert in such matters coming on to Lazarus, again, a favorite of yours, Jimmy Blanchette, whose work in geometric harmonic physics explores the mathematical and geometric structures underlying matter, light, consciousness, and non-human intelligence. So his discoveries span solutions to long-standing constants in physics, insights into the Great Pyramid as a black hole analog, decoded extraterrestrial signals, and real-time interaction experiments using scalar wave transmission. Some of you will remember I was lucky enough a few years ago to spend time with Jimmy and participated in one of those extraordinary experiments communicating to our extraterrestrial friends, and darted out into the desert in time to see the lights in the sky and receive those messages back. Go back to the early archives of Lazarus Symposium if you want to watch that fascinating piece.
Hello, Sacha. You cut off for a little while here. That's okay.
I told you about the satellites here in Africa, but there you go, Jimmy. Good to see you, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on your show. There's a lot happening, a lot going on, a lot of new information, and I'm very excited to share today. And so we'll be going through this. And again, thanks.
The question, Jimmy, is this slide sets the foundation for everything that follows. How does Metatron's cube function as the geometric origin point of the material world within your framework?
All right. Thank you, Sacha. Well, yeah, this is really, I should give some brief feedback on the foundation of this work, really, which I call geometric harmonic physics, right? Which is really a new perspective on physics, which ties geometry to actual physics. There's been a lot of theories from different physicists about, that the universe was geometry, based on geometry and so on, but there was actually that connection between sacred geometry, for instance, and our actual physics and science has never been made before. And the heart really of the strategy really was developed many, many years ago by a pioneer called Bruce Caddy, who proposed essentially that we use units of distance and time in order to express the geometry that was present in the universe. And so that was developed, at the time in the 70s, the work of Bruce Caddy, which I expanded tremendously and took in quite a different direction. And so essentially, based on that, using the proper units and space and time, we can recalculate all the constants in our physics. The Planck length, for instance, the Planck constant, the speed of light, the gravitational constant, and things like that. And so by doing that, essentially using these new unit of measure and these new constants, we can reprocess essentially how the universe works. And what we see is actually an emergence of three harmonics of creations. And we find out that everything is connected to harmonic 144, harmonic 432, and the golden ratio, these three pillars of creation. And there's an equation that actually I've developed that shows that connection. Essentially, that's the unity, or the number one, which represents source. Source creation mathematically can be represented by the number one, divide itself into these three harmonics, the product of harmonic 144, 432, and the golden ratio. Using that strategy, essentially, and using this foundation, we can connect sacred geometry to our actual physics. It's always, it's been said, and for a long time, that the Metatron's cube, for instance, was encoded the blueprint of creation. So really recently, a few months ago, I was able to make that connection using the framework I've developed on geometric harmonics physics. And essentially what we're seeing here in this slide is, and I'm going to explain just very briefly, we can essentially go from these 13 spheres that are contained in the Metatron's cube to explaining essentially the foundation of the Planck length, which is the foundation of quantum physics. We explain the origin of the matter, the mass of the subatomic particles that makes up our material world, and even the universe, remarkably. And so if we take, for instance, these 13 spheres and we charge them with an energy equivalent to 1 over golden ratio, and the reason why I used 1 over golden ratio, which I call a primordial fractalization, is very simply source creation, and some may call it God, some may call it the Big Bang, right? But if we represent everything, all that is in the universe by the number 1 mathematically, we know that that singularity or that source divides itself into the many to create everything that's present in the universe. And what else, what better division principle than the golden ratio, right, to establish that division. So by dividing the 1 over golden ratio, essentially we represent the division of source creation into all that is, everything that we see in the universe. So if we apply mathematically this ratio, 1 over golden ratio, we charge these 13 spheres contained in the Metatron's cube. We end up, and we scale up this energy by harmonic 432, which is the harmonic of resonance. We end up with this sphere of energy that we see in the middle of the screen here in blue, with an energy equivalent to 347.088. So that's an energy, and that sphere itself, if we calculate its diameter, remarkably, we end up with a diameter equivalent to 1 Planck length, which is the foundation of quantum physics, right? This is the smallest oscillation of energy that exists in reality. And the next step, if we continue down this path, if we take that energy, and that's the beauty of it, as I said, we can now connect sacred geometry to our actual physics and science. We can feed that energy directly into the general relativity equation of Einstein, A equal mc squared, the famous one that everybody knows about. And so we feed that 347.088 energy, and we calculate the mass of matter equivalent to that energy. We divide by c squared. We end up with this figure in blue here, 1.6738421, right? So that is essentially the mass of matter equivalent to these 13 spheres of energy contained in the Metatron's cube, right? Remarkably, if we look in the mainstream science and the physics books, and we look up the average mass of the subatomic particles making up our material world, we will end up with a result in red here, 1.6737747, which matches this mass of matter that we obtained, through the Metatron's cube at 99.995% accuracy. So this is remarkable, where we essentially again went from the Metatron's cube to explaining the mass of the protons and neutrons making up our material world, literally. So in that sense, when it was said that the Metatron's cube encodes the blueprint of creation, that is the mathematical demonstration of it. And the key to be able to do that is to use the geometric harmonic physics framework that I've been talking about for a little while.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let's talk about Metatron's cube predicting mass, Planck length, and universal scale. And here we see Metatron's cube yielding subatomic mass. Chris, you'll bring that up. Planck length, and even the volume of the universe. So what allowed one geometric structure to resolve all three so precisely, and why do harmonic numbers like 1, 4, 4, for instance, and 4, 3, 2 recur across scales?
Yes, if you can go back by one slide, Christy, please, just to get back to the Metatron's cube. So really, as I explained at the beginning, the reason why we see these three harmonics of creation driving everything, driving these answers to this universal language, is because simply the source creation, right, divides itself into these three harmonics. It's really as simple as that, right? And mathematically, it's represented by 1, equal the product of harmonic 144 times harmonic 432 times the golden ratio, 5, right? So these 3 pillars of creation, when you multiply them, the product of these 3 harmonics of creation yields the unity, yields the number 1, or singularity. And this is where everything comes from, really. And I demonstrated that mathematically very accurately. And this is why we have essentially these 3 pillars of creation that drives everything. In this case, drives the solution of the Metatron's cube. I wanted to just briefly point out also here that I didn't get the time to explain. If we get back to that sphere of energy, that the combined energy of these 13 spheres, that 347.88, if we scale this energy by one golden ratio, and we see it at the bottom right of the slide, we end up with a volume energy equivalent to 561.6, right, to the power of 68 cubic nautical miles. That volume happens to match the best estimate of our universe. If anyone can look up, can go on ChatGPT, ask to express the best estimated volume of our universe in cubic nautical miles, which is a geometric harmonic units, we end up with 561.4. So we have a match of 99.96% matching the volume of our universe. So essentially,
Wow.
we go from quantum to our universe, right? Everything is folded within itself, right? Our universe is really just a fractal of the quantum space, and that is the mathematical demonstration of that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so another update, another finding here, very, very fresh, very recent, using again this universal language, this geometric harmonics physics, that, by the way, is being communicated by non-human intelligence through their manifestations. I do have many examples of that. I have my own sightings and manifestation that I recorded and decoded. So this language is embedded, encoded in these communication. And also in ancient structure, ancient sacred sites all over the world, their location on the Earth grid and their geometry, their dimensions, if you will, their structural dimensions, encodes these very harmonics of creation as well. So this knowledge has been percolating throughout our history for a long, long time. So this is not new. It is simply a knowledge that has been forgotten and suppressed greatly to take the power away from us, right? But now it is time for humanity to regain this power by reintroducing this knowledge that's been forgotten and suppressed. So if we apply that same, again, physics to the physics of black holes, so I discovered recently, and this is really blew my mind, this is one of the things that really blew the most my mind, is to discover that the physics of black holes was intricately and accurately encoded in the Great Pyramid of Giza. So what we see on the screen here are 5 formulas that are used in the physics of black holes. The volume of the black holes is represented by the one to the left side. We get the diameter of black hole, the Hawking temperatures that we've heard about, which has been discovered by Stephen Hawking, the horizon area of the black hole, which is important, and the entropy, because these encodes the information that can be encoded in a black hole. So these are 5 very known popular formula in our actual physics. So one of the variable in these formulas is actually the mass energy, right, of the black hole. So if we feed the mass energy into this formula, we get essentially results that will, render characteristics of the black hole. So what I use in this case is the volume energy, the energy contained within the Great Pyramid of Giza. Essentially, if we take the original, not the current, but the original dimension of the Great Pyramid of Giza with the casing stones and the apex, and we calculate the volume. And as I demonstrated in the past, a volume of space is not empty; is full of energy. And so, if we take that volume and we integrate this volume in terms of energy into these 5 equations here, we get a result that's absolutely stunning, and a result that connects to, as we see at the bottom, to golden ratio, phi, and pi at extremely high degree of accuracy, typically well above 99.9% of accuracy, in some cases 99.89% of accuracy. That energy essentially yields these results, at insane degree of accuracy. And there's only one value of energy that can achieve that, to have this penta-convergence, essentially. And that is the energy contained in the Great Pyramid of Giza. So this is really fascinating. And one of the implications, if we look just at the diameter of the black hole, here equals to pi, right? You see at the bottom left, the second value here. Again, the volume energy of the Great Pyramid will yield a mini black hole that will have a diameter equivalent to pi, and we know that pi is the symbol for portals. right? And that symbol for portals is present all over the world. We see it in the Torii Gate in Japan. We see it in Stonehenge, right? We see these rocks with the outer rock on top of them. So it's all pi that's essentially right in our face, which
Yeah.
encodes portal.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay, let's look to this Metatron's cube as a predictive physical model. At this point, geometry isn't just a descriptive, it's predictive, right? And how does this shift our understanding of physics itself? And can Metatron's cube be seen as a kind of compression algorithm for reality? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, there are several, Metatron's cube is one of these figures. We have even the flower of life that also has a different energy pattern. I decoded, I don't have a slide today on it, but the flower of life itself also contains the mass of the electron, right? That's responsible for all the chemistry, right? Biochemistry, biology, and so on is encoded in the flower of life. So I'm slowly working on decoding essentially all these very known sacred geometric structures and to translate that information into reality, into something that's tangible for us. And it really is tangible because it really explains the material world we live in. What we see on the screen here is again, a simple solution to the charge of the proton and electron. This has been a mystery that's still, as of today, unresolved. And again, using same strategy here, I found that if we just take the ratio of the mass of the proton over the mass of the electron times the Planck length, we get the electron charge and the proton charge at a very, very high degree of accuracy at 99.99%. Again, this is all very simple, and that's the beauty of it, is that all these, I will say, some of the greatest mysteries in our physics can be resolved with very, very simple equation that somebody with a high school diploma is able to resolve mathematically. It's really, really simple, and that's the beauty of it. It resides in simplicity. The answers reside in simplicity, and that's the beauty of this universal language as well. It's extremely simple, and we don't need to go very far, in the very details. It's all really tangible for pretty much anyone.
Very good. So let's talk about Great Pyramid black hole penta-convergence. When you applied black hole equations to the Great Pyramid and saw multiple parameters converging with extreme accuracy, what did that reveal about the pyramid's underlying purpose? Excuse me. And what role do pi and the golden ratio play in this convergence?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So to me, what I'm finding really with the work I've been doing now for a few years is that the Giza complex, and I'll say certainly the Great Pyramid, is a library that encodes all the knowledge of our universe, the knowledge about how the universe works to a very high degree of accuracy. So it's a repository of information. And for those who are able essentially just to go and extract the information encoded in the Great Pyramid, we can reconstruct an entire physics, including the physics of black holes, as we just demonstrated, right, in the slides that we saw earlier. So, we're able essentially to resolve everything. And that's one way that I often validate my own work, is that when I discover something, I go back to the Great Pyramid, and most of the time I'll find the answer encoded in the Great Pyramid to a very high degree of accuracy. So this structure has been left for humanity to essentially, for us, once our level of consciousness evolves enough that we can recognize and decode the information that is encoded in its structure, in its location on the planet, to develop this physics that will enable us to develop new technologies, that will provide anti-gravity, healing technologies, and eventually reach the stars. The formula we see here on a screen, the simplified formula for the fine structure constant. The fine structure constant remains, again, as of today, unresolved. It's an unresolved mysteries in our physics. And I proposed a mechanism a couple of years and a half ago that is shown here on the slide to the left. I'm not going to go through the detail of that, but what I can say again is that this solution to the fine structure constants, again, involve these same harmonics, right? Harmonic 144, the golden ratio, the primordial fractalization, the 1 over golden ratio we talked about. And really something I want to mention about the primordial fractalization of the division of the unity over golden ratio is the creation expresses itself through the simplest structure, in the simplest way. Again, 1 over golden ratio is very simple, and we take that energy and we charge that energy into a tetrahedron. And the reason why creation chose a tetrahedron is because the tetrahedron is the simplest three-dimensional structure in the universe. Again, the creation operates through simplicity and elegance, really. And that's why it chose the path of least resistance, going through the simplest equation, the simplest structures. And this leads the simplest solutions to the greatest mysteries in our universe. And I found that by doing the math on this and simplifying this equation, we can essentially simplify this equation as we see on the right side by 72 over pi squared gives us the fine structure constants at a very, very high degree of accuracy.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, very good. Geometric origin of proton and electron charge. So you've uncovered a remarkably simple geometric origin for proton and electron charge, but what does this tell us about the relationship between space, mass, and electromagnetism, and why might nature favor such elegant simplicity?
Yeah, well, again, this language we've been talking about operates through that simplicity, and the solution I found for that mystery, which remains one of the greatest mystery, the origin of the electron and proton charge, which drives, as I mentioned earlier, drives all the chemistry, all the electron transitions and everything that's happening in biology, biochemistry. And it's simply really the ratio of the mass of the proton over the mass of the electron times the Planck length. And it gives us this very simple answer, or it gives us the electron charge and the proton charge at a very high degree of accuracy. Again, it's always using these harmonics, right? These expression of creation with this harmonic 144, 432 golden ratio. I should mention in this case that even actually the Planck length itself has a representation in terms of these three harmonics, 144, 432, and golden ratio. So again, it's involving the same building blocks of creation, right? The same building blocks of the universe.
Jimmy, let's just move on to a topical subject. Scalar wave transmission toward 3I Atlas, and certainly with the Lazarus community, this is something we've done a number of very deep dives into over many long months. So a lot of burning questions around the subject, but this is where your work moves from theory into direct interaction. So what was the intention behind transmitting scalar and electromagnetic harmonics toward 3I Atlas, and how do frequency pairs like 144 and 432 function as communicative keys?
All right. Well, I realized recently and remarkably that the rotatable polarity capability of my antenna system was actually the perfect solution to produce scalar waves. And I had not developed this capability for that purpose initially. It was to do moon-bound communication. But looking at the work of Thomas Burden, which was very known, in the field of scalar waves, is no longer with us anymore, but he's done a lot of work in the field, and he explains that to produce a scalar waves, you just need to essentially have two antenna systems, right? And one of the antenna has to be out of phase by 180 degrees, right? And if you do this out of phase configuration, you will essentially cancel the radio waves, but what's going to come out of your transmission will be actual scalar waves. And some of the characteristics of scalar waves is that they can travel faster than speed of light, which is remarkable in itself, and can go through matter like butter, literally, as if matter was transparent. And so it is the perfect, I would say, medium to communicate long distances, or even to other dimensions, because essentially you can travel faster than speed of light. So when I discovered that, I essentially configure my antenna array to produce scalar waves. And obviously the first target that came to mind was 3I Atlas, because we know the importance of this body passing through our solar system right now. And so I directed my antenna, and that's actually the actual picture of the transmission I made. I should note that the 3I Atlas was not visible during the night, but was, we can only see it during the day, if you will, and that's why we see the sun close by. I broadcasted some messages of what's coming. I know there's a passage coming up December 19th, which is in a few days from now. It's a very, very important date because 3i Atlas will be closest to Earth. And I do have a slide. I'm going to talk about it in a second. And will be closest to Earth. And again, what's remarkable is that the distance on that very day that 3i Atlas will pass through Earth, the distance will be matching these harmonics of creation we talked about, harmonic for 144 and 432. So this one is tied essentially to the passage of 3i Atlas on December 19th. Remarkably also, and I'm stunned that Avi Loeb and the astrophysicists and astrologists have not noticed that. But on that day of December 19th, there's going to be a very rare planetary alignment happening.
Yes.
And not only Mars and Venus, will be aligned, but we have also a conjunction with the Sagittarius A, right, which is the center of the Milky Way, which contains a massive black holes, which which is very, very significant. And also on that day, the moon will be directly aligned with the sun as well. So we have this amazing conjunction happening. And what happens, if we just take the moon itself, right, the gravitational pull of the moon is sufficient to lift and transport trillions of tons of water on planet Earth. All the tides that we see in the oceans are because of the moon gravitational pull. Now imagine when we have the moon and the sun aligned. The sun also has a huge impact, as we can obviously imagine. Plus all these planets and the center of the Milky Way, we have the perfect conditions to have a significant impact on our planet. And there are different ways that this impact can make itself felt. It can be in the form of a solar storm, right? Coronal mass ejection. And we've seen over the last few days actually a record, this big solar storm, a lot of northern light aurora happening. It's very active. It's because these planets and this alignment is coming together very slowly and is disturbing the energies in our solar system in a very significant way. What's going to happen on December 19th? The other way that it can express itself, actually, this pole, is that this could trigger a change in the axis of the rotation of our planet. Right, there could be a pole shift emerging as a result of that. Very significant, again, obviously.
Wow.
And the thing about this planetary alignment, I looked at in the past, right, and there was a similar, actually. And I have slides on this. I can make a presentation at some point. But in 1859, everybody heard about the Carrington event, right? The Carrington event in 1859 was the strongest solar storm ever recorded in our history.
Yeah.
And if the same solar storm would happen today, it will actually disable all our power grids for many months, if not for years, all over the planet. And as I looked on the past using the software, and I saw that there was the very same type of planetary alignment that happened during the Carrington event. And so this is why there's actually a newer science emerging. Now it's not obviously mainstream because mainstream is keeping us from knowing the truth, but there's this new science really can predict volcanoes, solar storm, earthquake, based on the location of planets in our solar system and the conjunction and so on. So this is something really real. December 19th is an important day. And again, one thing I need to mention here, if you go back to that slide, Christy, the distance, and that's remarkable. And that's where, the 3i class, to me, there's so many signs that there's an intelligence behind this, is because the mathematics that it reveals is just stunning, right? Again, just this planetary alignment itself that will happen on the exact day that the 3i Atlas will be the closest to Earth is remarkable in itself. Statistically speaking, it's highly improbable that it's a coincidence. And not only that, now we see on the screen that the distance between 3i Atlas and Earth will be equivalent to harmonic 144 at 99.2% accuracy. We see at the bottom right here, there's a little table that shows the actual distance between 3i Atlas and the Earth on that day of December 19th. The distance will be equivalent to 145.2 million nautical miles, right, which matches really closely harmonic 144 at 99.2% accuracy. Same 3i Atlas distance between the Atlas and the Sun will be matching harmonic 432 squared, or 186.8 million nautical miles, 99.9% accuracy, right? So this, again, reveals something that's very significant.
Remarkable. So I also want to ask, whilst we're on the subject, DNA resonance and December 19th, and 3I Atlas. So you've identified a resonance between 3I Atlas and human DNA frequencies. As its closest approach nears, what feels most important for humanity to observe and understand about this moment, in your view?
Yes. So on that day of the perihelion, so the day that the 3I Atlas was closest to the sun, right? And the sun is known to be a portal. On that day, it was October 19th, that passed couple of months ago. When we look at the distance between the 3I Atlas and the sun, and we compute that distance as a wavelength, that wavelength happened to match the wavelength or frequency of our DNA, of human DNA, at 99.4% accuracy. And this is really, really stunning in itself. And there's a lot of theories that said that 3I Atlas, is having an impact on humanity, and is broadcasting frequencies to uplift, our resonance and the overall vibration of 3D scale, in the material world we live in on the planet Earth. And so it's interesting that, again, on that day, it was October 29th, actually, just I stand corrected. October 29th, on that day, the distance between 3I Atlas and the sun, the wavelength, the frequency of that distance happens to match the wavelength or frequency of the human DNA. So that I found it remarkable.
Absolutely fascinating. Jimmy, so when you talking about the wow signal decoded, we heard a lot about this from our mutual friend David Serena many months ago. When you realized the wow signal encodes the fine structure constant, what did that reveal about the nature of the signal, its source, and the possibility of a universal mathematical language?
Yeah, beautiful. So it's interesting. I need to make the connection here, because the discovery I made about the wow signal happened only 3 to 4 days after I broadcasted towards 3I Atlas using scalar waves. So it's very interesting, because to me it almost felt like, here I was broadcasting towards, actually, the day that I broadcasted towards 3I Atlas using scalar wave, I also broadcasted toward the sun after, which is a portal, using scalar wave. So I broadcasted in the direction of these two bodies. And a few days later, I had this inspiration, like instantly the answer to the wow signal came to me. And I almost felt it was a way that the universe was responding to my transmission.
Yes.
Giving me that answer that's been sought for many years, for decades. No one was able to discover the solution to the wow signal. And again, and the beauty of it is that the solution is extremely simple, right? The wow signal lasted 72 seconds. And it was caught on the Big Ear telescope in Ohio in 1977 on the frequency 420.4556 megahertz, right? And so that is the information we have from the wow signal. So having these two components, the last piece of the puzzle that was missing was simply the medium that was used for them to transmit this information, which is regular radio waves. And regular radio waves travels at the speed of light, which is represented by the harmonic of light 144. That is 144,000 nautical miles per geometric second. That is the electromagnetic speed of light harmonic that I've shown in my work, right? This is a foundation to everything. And so by simply making the product of that speed of light by the duration of the wow signal over its frequency, we end up with a result that's fascinating, which is the fine structure constant at 99.98% accuracy. Interestingly, Carl Sagan, many decades ago, once said that if the fine structure constant was ever found encoded within a message from deep space, this will constitute the strongest possible evidence of an extraterrestrial origin. And it's exactly what happened, is that the wow signal encodes the very fine structure constant that Carl Sagan was talking about at a very high degree of accuracy and an extreme simplicity again, which is encoding these harmonics of creation that I've been talking about, which is part of the framework of the geometric harmonic physics that I'm writing a book on now.
Fantastic stuff, Jimmy. Really fantastic. So, evidence that we live inside a black hole. Let's go there. Using your framework, the universe's volume aligns. I'm being eaten alive by mosquitoes. So if you see me slapping my face, that's why. Using your framework, the universe's volume aligns almost perfectly with a black hole defined by the golden ratio. So how does this reshape our understanding of cosmology and reconcile with independent JWST findings? And you might want to explain what JWST means.
Yes, all right. If we can pull the slide, Christy. So what I did here was very simple. Again, this is very, very recent discovery. So what we have on that slide to the left side, we see the formula that is used to calculate the volume of a black hole based on its mass energy, right? That's the physics formula in our mainstream science. So simply what I did, I applied the principle of primordial fractalization that I've been talking about, which is again 1 divided by the golden ratio, 1/phi, as the expression of the source itself, dividing itself right into the many, to fractalize itself, if you will, into everything that we see around us. So I applied this energy, 1/phi, and I inputted that energy into the formula here to calculate the volume of the corresponding black hole to that energy. The result I got was what we see here on the top of the screen, 560.8 to the power of 68 cubic nautical miles, so 560.8 harmonic number here. And what's remarkable is that this calculated volume, if anyone again can look up on the internet or ChatGPT and ask for the best estimate volume of our universe in cubic nautical miles, you will get a value close to 561.4, which matches the calculated volume of the black hole when we use 1/phi as the energy of a black hole. So essentially, what this is supportive of the evidence that essentially we live in a black hole that has a volume that happens to match the volume of our universe per mainstream science. The math is simple and it's indisputable. Interestingly, a few days ago, something showed up on my screen. I was on the internet, and it says that the James Webb Telescope discovery, there's a James Webb Telescope discovery that suggests that we actually might be trapped inside a black hole. So even the James Webb Telescope now indicates that this may be the case, and it's very controversial, obviously. And what this means actually is that what we see as black holes in our universe may simply be independent bubble universe that have their own space-time continuum, and we see this multi-universe essentially all over our universe itself, which are represented as black holes, which are portals, right? We can access these different universes through these portals, these black holes, and that seems to be one of the implications of it. But the mathematics is indisputable. It's very consequential, so it's very exciting.
Very good. So triangular UAP and the 103.655 degree harmonic angle. During a golden ratio transmission, a triangular UAP manifested, expressing a precise geometric angle. So what does the 103.655 angle represent structurally, and how do you interpret this response? Confirmation, teaching, or alignment?
Yeah, again, my experience with communication or contact with non-human intelligence is that they are communicating to us the keys to the universe through their manifestations and in different ways. So what I did on that day of May 31st, 2022, I had the idea to broadcast a frequency matching the golden ratio, right? 161.8, 1618 is the value of the golden ratio, which, by the way, happens to match this famous 1.6 gigahertz that we heard about at the Skinwalker Ranch, right? They say here they've documented that when there's high strangeness and UFO sightings, there's this strange frequency of 1.6 gigahertz that's showing up on their spectrum analyzer, and they don't know why. I know why. It's because 161.8 this harmonic, when we convert that into a geometric harmonic figures, we get harmonic 144, which is, again, this universal harmonic of creation. So I broadcasted essentially this frequency matching the golden ratio in our frequency scale, but matching harmonic 144 in a geometric harmonic scale to see if this will trigger a reaction from the non-human intelligence. Remarkably, within seconds after starting broadcasting the tone, this triangular craft just popped in and out right in front of the antenna array. I do have the video of it, and this is a screenshot which we see on the screen here. And this was really a confirmation to me that this was a very significant frequency
Yeah.
or harmonic, and that again, it's reported by even at the Skinwalker Range. It's only 3 years later, believe it or not, in the spring of 2025, which is really relatively recent, that I had the idea of calculate the angle of this triangle, which I did. And I've been, as you know, working closely, collaborating with our good friend Charlie Zees, who's done a tremendous amount of work on angles. So I communicated to Charlie about this fact that, hey, I've got this angle, 103.655, which, by the way, happens to be the supplementary angle of the apex of the Great Crater of Giza.
Yeah.
Right? So it was remarkable. And if we see on the slide, after, again, working with Charlie, where this angle was encoded, we realized that this angle is encoded in so many ancient structures all over the world, in the Temple of Inscription in Mexico, the Dozier Pyramid in Egypt, the Bend Pyramid, and so on, and so many pyramids encode this angle. And also it's encoded in nature itself. I mean, we see it in the fish and everywhere, in trees, in fruits, in the configuration of different animals. This is a very, very significant angle, which is an angle of creation, we can call it. I through doing some deeper mathematics on it, and I'm not going to show the slide because it's probably going to scare people here, but actually this angle is an angle that favors the creation of mini black holes or portals.
Oh, very good. Okay. I love the badger's face there. I mean, that's just too classic. That's wonderful. Okay. I've got a couple of questions. Unifying implication across geometry, particle physics, cosmology, ancient architecture, and non-human intelligence, the same harmonic structures keep reappearing. So if this framework is fundamentally correct, what does it tell us about the nature of intelligence itself, human and non-human, and its relationship to geometry as a shared operating language for the universe?
Well, it's a beautiful question. I think actually this language, this universal language linking geometry, quantum physics, is actually the mathematics, is the science of consciousness. As simple as that. We look, for instance, even our brain waves, right? We know that the brain waves actually matches the frequency of the Schumann resonance.
Yes.
That 7.83 hertz that everybody knows about, the Schumann resonance, when we convert that frequency into a geometric harmonic figure using the proper units, it matches exactly the reciprocal of harmonic 144. Again, 144 comes back again, right? So this is repeating pattern. So our consciousness and the connection of our consciousness to source creation itself is done through this mathematics, through these harmonics. There's no doubt about it. To me now, it's just so provable. It's indisputable, and it's simple. And that's the beauty of it. What I like about it is, once we get our arms around it, it's extremely simple. The greatest mysteries in our universe, whether it's the origin of the speed of light, the origin of matter, the subatomic particles, that creates the material world we live in, the fine structure constant, the proton and electron charge, all these really can be expressed simply by a simple, very simple equation involving these harmonics of creation. And that is the future for us. And I believe that what's going to take place now in the coming years, once this come out more broadly and is understood more broadly, we'll develop technologies using this, because this is the technology that non-human intelligence use. I've had manifestation. This triangle actually contain these harmonics, right? This is embedded in their own technologies. And so we'll develop technologies to reach the stars, healing technologies, right, to reconstitute our body and so on.
Yeah. Well, it's across the board, isn't it? So on that question of the sort of scientific threshold, so to speak. So your work sits at the boundary where theoretical physics becomes experimentally interactive, to be sure. So, what would you say is the next decisive step for this research to move from a breakthrough framework into broader scientific validations? What kind of experiment, a replication, or observation would likely change everything?
Great question. Well, I mean, where I'm at right now is to provide this information. It's free. All the information I make it available, to everyone. It's important this information is communicated and picked up by engineers, scientists, mathematicians, and so on, and then they realize the magnitude of it and how we can explain essentially all the secrets in our universe, these mysteries. And the next step to that is develop technologies, right, and apply good engineering to this. This is, again, as I said, this is being communicated today by non-human intelligence. They are communicating this to us for us to regain our freedom, right? And once we reach that level of consciousness, it's when we recognize this information, decode it, and turn it into technology, we will regain all our powers and will be able again to do amazing things that once considered like miracle or impossible.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, and on human responsibility, if geometry, harmony, and consciousness are not emergent but foundational, and if contact operates through coherence rather than technology alone, what responsibility does this place on us, on the human family, not just scientifically, but ethically, and in terms of how we develop our technologies, our civilization, and our approach, obviously, to contact going forward?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. It's an important one, actually. My interpretation of the timing of that information coming out right now is important because this technology or this knowledge is so powerful, right, that we can, if it's not used with the right wisdom in the right level of consciousness, we can annihilate our planet, literally. We can destroy our planet. This is so
Yeah.
powerful. It's in the same league as AI, literally, right? But it's in its own thing. So it's important that humanity has the right level of consciousness to be able to use this knowledge and turn that into technology that's going to transform humanity. And that's why it's part of what I call Terra number 2 or Earth number 2, right? Which is the new era we're getting into right now. The timing is not an accident and it's happening now.
And what is your general prognosis? I mean, you're a scientist, you're not a philosopher, although I suspect you've got a profoundly philosophical bent, being, as you are, somebody who's on the frontiers of science and bending every single stricture. But from a, dare I say it, psycho-spiritual, philosophical perspective, what is your general sentiment of where we stand as a species, as a peoples, as a planet right now?
Well, I think we're at a crossroad, literally. It's an intersection that we're at. And we need to, every one of us will have their own journey, which is personal to us, customized to us. We create our reality, right? The physical world we live in, everything we see around is a projection of our own consciousness, really. And so it is a pivotal point that we turn back inside and remember who we really are, right? Remember the potential we have and realign ourselves with source and with the universe. And it's an opportunity to get into this Terra number 2 or this new world, this golden age that we're transitioning into right now. And so it is and we see it, this battle between dark and light is happening as we see, we're witness of that. And I think the time we're in right now will be in the galactic histories of our planet. I mean, this is going to be mainstream media in the galaxy and the universe because it's very significant what's taking place right now. And it's really, but we have our own journey into this, and we need to get into this higher vibrations and follow this path that will yield us really to our freedom and experience ourselves for what we really are, really, this
Yeah,
dimensional, eternal
yeah.
being.
Beautiful. And it seems to me that when you talk about us being we are the enactment, the embodiment, and the manifestation of that fight between light and dark. We're not just bearing witness to it, we are embodying it, enacting it, and manifesting it in real time. We are the technology that determines the outcome in that sense. I've got a closing question here for you, which is really, if the universe is fundamentally structured by harmonic geometry, which we've pretty much arrived at, and if intelligence recognizes itself through coherence rather than language, then are we not so much seeking contact, but being measured by it? And in your view, what signal does humanity currently transmit?
Right. It's an interesting question, right? So, I mean, a lot of people look for contact like waiting for some kind of a text, being transmitted by an intelligence. And it's not the way they communicate, right? They communicate through this universal language, this resonance language, this language which represents source, really. I mean, source divided into these harmonics. I think and that's what I transmit when I broadcast actually towards space, whether it was the sun or Tree Atlas or any planets and so on. I broadcast this knowledge back, all these discoveries that we've looked at today. I broadcast this homework back, essentially back to the universe, in a way to say, look, we figured this one out, right? Send us the next batch of information. So this is the two-way communication that I've been trying to have and having had some level of success having. To the broader structure of that, I think clearly they are monitoring our level of consciousness, where we're at, what we're ready to assimilate and decode and integrate into our lives. And this is the kind of interactions we're having with these universal intelligences, which is just wonderful, really. It's just fascinating.
Jimmy, I'm so glad that we got you on today. And I think that Christy mentioned to me that we're looking to have a few successive conversations with you, and I'm certainly planning on dropping by and seeing you. The last time I was flying past you, we couldn't make that meeting last year, but I very much wanted to, and certainly in 2026, it's on top of my wish list, is to spend a little bit more time with you. And I also am very keen to see your phased array antenna farm. And are you still using the moon as a bounce pad for everything you do?
Well, I still do moon bounce, and I do also direct transmission toward directly to whatever target it is, whether it's the sun, Jupiter, whatever, right? And so, yeah, all these modalities are still operating. I'd be happy to give you a tour next time. My setup has evolved quite a bit, and so it's having a lot of fun here, dealing with interacting with the universe.
Excellent. Jimmy Blanchett, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Pleasure.